What I'd like to take a few minutes to do today is to talk about gender issues, gender equality and empowerment, and its links and its contribution to trade policy. I'm going to look at it from a perspective of a trade practitioner, how they think about trade policy and trade strategy, and how to integrate more fully social issues such as gender equality and empowerment into an effective trade strategy for a country. Trade practitioners think of trade policy in two ways: how to grow the economy through increased integration into the international trading system, and how to manage any negative impacts as a result of that focus on trade and integration into the system. They spend a lot of time thinking about market access, in other words, getting into other markets, the capacity to trade, and domestic competitiveness. They have very little time to think about more societal issues, and in fact, lots of times think, well, those things will be dealt with in another way. If you look at the Caribbean and some of its experiences recently with trade policy, there's some good examples of why these two parts, trade and social issues, should be integrated in a more fundamental way. The Caribbean's been going through lots of challenges over the last 10 years, particularly since the financial crisis. Imports are up, exports are down, the economies are stagnating, lots of indebtedness in governments, and unrelenting competition from new and existing sources. The response of the Caribbean is to say, at least from a trade perspective, is to say, well, let's look at our trade agreements and what can we do about that? So they've been participating effectively in Geneva with the negotiations at the Doha round of the WTO. They've been looking at their trade strategies with their key economic partners, Europe, Canada, United States, and others, and saying, okay, how do we develop better trade regimes for our companies? They've also increasingly been looking at other economies, particularly in Latin America and elsewhere, and how can we create new opportunities for our businesses. There's also been lots of focus on implementing the trade agreements and regularizing or trying to reduce the cost of doing business at the border and behind the border, as they say in trade terms. What I think is missing is greater focus on the people who are doing business and trading. As you'll see in some videos that accompany this one, we've interviewed some women entrepreneurs across the Caribbean. Listen to them carefully. They talk about trade policy and trade strategy. They talk about the challenges of international competition. They talk about standards, costs of doing business, and so on. But when you ask them directly, what is the key issue for you in terms of building your business, they talk about empowerment. If I'm going to grow my business, I need to be able to get access to capital without having to find a man to co-sign my loan. If I'm going to be taking seriously in the meetings that I have with business people, that will then help build my business more than any of the other challenges I have in terms of competing domestically and internationally. Every now and then you say, well, if something's not working, let's look at alternatives. There's lots of opportunity, lots of ideas, talents, and skills that are not being fully realized for the good of the national and regional project in the Caribbean. Watch these videos and I think you'll agree with me that here's an opportunity that needs to be fully realized.